Coming up next on Wavelength, LCRA makes utility history. The shutdown begins at Cummings Creek. We'll introduce you to our new board chairman, Jim Garrison. And LCRA adopts a no-smoking policy. Those stories and more next on Wavelength.
From the Lower Colorado River Authority, this is Wavelength.
Hi everybody and welcome to Wavelength. The extremely cold weather in December produced extraordinary electric usage in the LCRA system and therefore a sizable amount of additional revenue for the month. So LCRA decided to do something that's never been done before by any electric utility in Texas. The board voted to return $3 million of these surplus revenues back to our customers.
We are requesting approval of an extraordinary one-time credit.
Any refund must be approved by the Texas Public Utility Commission, and a hearing was held January 16th. The discussion got lively, especially when PUC Chairman Paul Meek suggested that LCRA simply keep the surplus funds and apply them to other expenses.
If we hear every case that oversees their revenues by 1% or so, we haven't got enough time in this commission to hear them all.
I haven't seen any of the investor-owned utilities beating down our doors filing such, and I doubt that you're going to see it because they don't have to do it. Legally, we can't force them to do it. I am
But legally, we set them to rates that'll set a reasonable return.
Oh, come off of it. If you think TU, HLMP, CP&L, and El Paso Electric, and GSU, and everybody else didn't make additional revenues, and every gas utility in this state didn't make additional revenues because of the cold spell, you're dreaming.
We have good months and bad months, and we don't come in here when we just have a good month. But this was off the chart. This was 200 megawatts on top of a 1,700 megawatt load, which was the highest thing that we ever thought could happen. And we said those demand charges are just going to kill those people. And so what we decided to do was to propose to our board of directors just a simple refund of the top couple of hundred megawatts of demand that was created.
The question today that we're presenting.
Meanwhile, some wholesale customers felt their conservation efforts were being penalized because they wouldn't get back as much money as others.
The people that conserved, Your Honor, they saved 100% of the bill. We are a strict cost of service outfit, the nonprofit, and we try to keep the rates as low as possible, and $3 million back into the economy of rural central Texas is an important matter to us. And that's why I realize that we're taking a lot of your time and you've got big matters, but this is an important thing and we feel that it ought to just be approved.
The refund was approved by the PUC and is being made to LCRA customers.
During the December cold snap, the LCRA electric system set 3 new all-time peak records. But few people may realize that on the morning of December 23rd, the demand for electricity across the state was so great it could not be met. That created an emergency that forced utilities in Texas to initiate rotating blackouts for the first time in the state's history. You see, most of the electric utilities in Texas, including LCRA, are connected together. ERCOT, as it's called, manages the system through control centers located in Austin and Dallas, helping utilities sell power if they have it or buy power if they need it, and always watching over the system to make sure it doesn't get overloaded. In reviewing the crisis that occurred December 23rd, Walter Reed explained that all of the generators in the state being tied together run at the same speed, represented by the dark line shown here. If the system gets more demand than it can meet, those generators, the entire system slows down, creating a danger. Here is the situation that existed statewide that Saturday morning, December 23rd.
we had totally run out of operating reserve. We did not have any generation in excess of load. So if the load went up, the only thing that could happen was for the system to slow down. Well, we can allow that to happen for only a limited amount of time, because if we get too low, below this little dotted line I've put on here, then we're getting into a more dangerous situation, because what we're worried about is the whole system slowing down to the point that it really stops. And that can happen, and it would be an uncontrolled outage throughout Texas.
The state's electric system did fairly well through much of that Saturday morning, until about 10 a.m. when a number of power plants across the state suddenly tripped off due to problems. In utility control centers across Texas, operators watched in virtual horror as the speed of the system statewide dropped.
And then, you know, it's really coming on down, and all the operators in Texas are watching this together. And we have our security center here in Austin that Jim Briley's in charge of, as well as another security center in North Texas that have the job of calling for statewide action if it's required. And everybody in the state was poised, but you can see it's hanging in there, not quite doing it. And so everybody was watching and being very careful, but at this point it looked like we were going to hang in there and hang in there. Then all of a sudden you can see this next drop in frequency, and at that point is when we, for the first time ever in ERCOT history, called for a statewide set of rolling blackouts using prearranged load drops that we had all talked about. And you can see that as we started dropping load in the state, everywhere we started recovering. You can see the system speeding up. And you can see we're coming up there pretty quickly. And this is what the operators were seeing and watching as they took the actions that they took. Now, had they not taken these actions, it's not clear what would have happened here. But if we slow down too slow, we could get into an uncontrolled loss of load. It happened pretty quick when I just talked to you here, but it took 10 minutes to go from there to there. So even when the operators were shedding the load, it was very difficult for them to know how effective they were going to be and whether they had done enough.
That was quite a scare, and it now has every electric utility in the state reviewing their cold weather operations procedures. Extremely cold weather is very tough on power plants. Our Sim Gideon plant did a good job during the cold snap, but boy, what they go through. Sim Gideon's units 1 and 2 are outside with some equipment sitting 110 feet up. When you get single-digit temperatures, it's a battle to keep things thawed out. So what they have to do is put up sheets of plywood and plastic. They have to individually wrap sensitive areas to keep things from freezing, like this transmitter, a sensoring device that lets control room operators know how a piece of equipment is operating.
It tells you one thing, and the unit's actually doing something else. The levels are going down or up on you when you think that it's all right.
So what they do at Sim Gideon is put out some 15 portable kerosene heaters at critical locations, plus keep several people hustling around the plant with handheld torches trying to keep vital areas thawed out. While in the control room, the operators can only hope that the instrument readings they are seeing are correct.
Well, the control room operator is doing everything he can to keep that unit online, to keep it operating at its best efficiency, and to keep it safe. There's no way he can know what's going on in all the systems unless the transmitters are functioning properly and sending the proper signals.
So, because of around-the-clock efforts by the entire crew at Sim Gideon during this cold snap, potentially expensive damages were avoided. LCRA's water management plan for the Colorado River is beginning to trigger new actions in our management of the river system. First, to help improve the summertime lake levels at Travis and Buchanan, the board recently voted not to make any additional optional water sales during the coming year. Then, because of little rain, the flow rate of the river below Austin has slowed this winter below a minimum standard. LCRA has begun a small, steady release of water from the Highland Lakes to maintain healthy fish and wildlife habitat.
No other river has a plan of this magnitude, and certainly no other river has made a commitment to maintain an in-stream flow in order to maintain wildlife habitat. This is the first in the state that I'm aware of, but you know, the needs of the stream below Austin is just as real and just as important as the needs of the users up in the Highland Lakes are down below in the Bay and Estuary.
Sun Coal Company of Knoxville has been awarded a 5-year contract to supply coal from Wyoming for FPP3. The plant will use more than 1 million tons of coal a year at a cost of about $4 per ton. Unit 3 burns a mixture of 90% western coal and 10% lignite from LCRA's Powell Bend mine near Bastrop.
The disposition of Cummings Creek property has begun. Our lignite leases have been terminated, easements are being released back to landowners, and any land disturbed by our construction will be restored. And soon the board will get recommendations on what to do with the 1,600 acres of land we own at the site. And then there's the equipment.
Right now, since we are currently looking at other Texas lignite options, we're going to hold on to that equipment. And as soon as we determine the viability and the feasibility of the other Texas lignites, then we'll make a decision on what we're actually going to do. We're not going to actively market the equipment at this time, but if somebody solicits an unsolicited proposal or somebody submits an unsolicited proposal, we'll evaluate that proposal and take it to the board and let them make a decision on that on a case-by-case basis.
How do you feel, Dudley, after all the work and the years now with the project shutting down?
Well, there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears poured into that project. 10, 12 years ago when the project was initiated, Texas lignite was probably one of the greatest things going. And as times change and as economics change, we have to remold our plans to fit the best prudent path of our decision-making process.
The board also approved the use of this 75-acre tract on Lake Travis for the construction of a summer wilderness camp for underprivileged kids. The camp will be built and operated by the Austin Young Men's Business League, which has operated the Sunshine Camp in Zilker Park in Austin since 1928.
Let's talk to each other.
Programs at the wilderness camp will teach 12 to 15-year-olds leadership skills, teamwork, and trust in one another. They will also camp out, cook their own food, and have an opportunity to learn about the environment. The Sunshine Camp at Lake Travis will hold 7 weekly sessions starting in June. Each session will accommodate about 25 kids.
Well, thank you. This is a surprise.
LCRA employees, to show their appreciation for the recent $50 pay raise, signed a giant thank you card which Alan Rogers of our video department presented to David Freeman and the board. The card contains signatures from employees at every LCRA plant and facility.
You know, there was some question on some people's part, not mine, that the employees might not really appreciate just a $50 a month pay raise. I think that anybody that had that opinion in the past certainly can't have it now. I have never seen so much appreciation in all my life to something that was long overdue and well earned by everyone, but it just gave me a good feeling to receive this expression with the signatures that I guess everybody and his uncle in LCRA on it, and it just goes to show you that the people in this organization will respond if people show that they care about them, and I hope that there'll be many other occasions where the employees will recognize that we do care.
Boats, boats, and more boats. The annual Austin Boat and Motorcycle Show was held recently at Palmer Auditorium, and one of the most popular booths was sponsored by LCRA. This interactive computer system was a hit, especially with the younger set. The computer allows you to play games and at the same time learn about water conservation, electricity, boating safety, and archaeology. The booth was staffed by LCRA volunteers throughout the 10-day show, which was attended by some 14,000 people.
It was early morning on the clear blue waters of Lake Buchanan as a group of environmentalists armed with binoculars and maps began this year's eagle count. The eagles migrate to the northern tip of this lake from colder regions from January through March. Spotters on this day counted 25 eagles, an increase over last year's total of 17. Experts say the birds like the lake because of the clean water and abundant fish. And if you'd like to see these magnificent birds in person, the Vanishing Texas River Cruise offers daily trips that provide an opportunity.
A new LCRA policy, effective February 1st, prohibits smoking in any LCRA office area. LCRA joins a growing number of other public agencies who have adopted similar no-smoking policies.
I'd have to say that most of the employee input that we have received runs along the lines of not having smoking in the working environment. That means that if you smoke at LCRA, you can't smoke at your desk and you can't smoke in any of the public places, and you pretty much have to smoke on your own time, at home, coming to work, on your break, at lunch.
When I go across the street to the Shapiro building, I'll puff on a cigarette across the way. But I think my real objective, and hopefully I can do it with what LCRA offers, is to quit eventually. I mean, I've been saying I'm going to do that for years, and maybe now's the right time to do that.
The smokers are being told what to do, but I feel like it's a health concern for everyone involved, and I want to be healthy, so I feel like it's a good policy.
But I do think they ought to have a designated area because a lot of people like to smoke and they shouldn't be deprived of it.
Rose says LCRA will be offering smoking cessation classes as part of this new policy.
Jim Garrison is LCRA's new board chairman. He was elected at the December board meeting. Garrison lives in Spicewood and is the chairman of the board at First Interstate Bank's Marble Falls office. Appointed to the LCRA board in 1987, Garrison says he is genuinely excited about all the work LCRA is doing, and we ask him for his impressions of the staff.
We have a very good staff. I'd stack them up against anybody in the public sector or in the private sector. We have people that are conscientious, they have good work ethics, and they also got some brains, and they're using them.
Garrison says he's especially proud of the work LCRA has done in the area of water quality, such as a non-point pollution ordinance. He wants that work to continue and credits the board for the character needed to take the lead in uncharted territory.
It's scary when you go out and take the lead in some cases because you don't know what the ramifications are going to be legally, sometimes economically and politically. And I think right now we have jumped out there and done some things that have needed to be done, and we've done them based on a prudent basis more than what's the right thing to do politically or what's the right thing to do economically. I think we've done the right thing for the future of the people up and down the river basin.
Garrison says there is a big difference between being on the board and being board chairman. It takes a lot more time, he says. He attends more functions, plus he gets a lot more phone calls. Well, that's it for this edition of Wavelength. We'll see you again next month.